7 Days of Saikin Book 1 by Zenazakura. Page 26. The Mirror Conspiracy. As usual, the last week of school was filled with goldering off and trying to keep students under control while the promise of summer beckoned. Today was no different, being a school-wide field trip to the Equestrian County Museum of Art and History. The reason for this was full unveiling of the whole Baldessere di Cavalcanti exhibit, including the legendary and mysterious Mirror Cavalcanti. For that reason alone, Sunset made sure she was going. So every instinct that screamed at her to take the optional study day so she could sleep in the library. As expected, most of the teens were interested in Paul's exhibit for another reason to make jokes about the historical old dude who thought he was an old powerful wizard thanks to a unicorn he T-voted in a mirror. Wirefire encapsulated the whole thing perfectly when he commented, if I had a mirror like that, I think I'd ask for something more practical, like being the Queen of Italy or something. However, fierce of his reputation had been during his lifetime, centuries later, he probably would have been less than enthused to know he was considered a historical joke, while his contemporaries, John Dee and Giorgio Bruno, were thought much higher than he thought of us all. Of more interest, however, was the painting that depicted Baldessere's wife, Casale della Luca, looking at the black unicorn as though she planned to romp with it of an entirely different kind. Many of the students made classy and erudite remarks such as, "We know where that one's going," as well as bawdy jokes. One or two boys commented if she was interested in the unicorn, she would have run off with one of them first, because they were far more packed than any unicorn. A few of the girls made fun of the period clothing, figuring that even though that was contemporary fashion at the time, honestly, Cosimo looked a little better considering she was the wife of a supposed all-powerful wizard. Strangely enough, a few students were even interested in the exhibit for what it was. Trixie and Lyra continued their arguments on all things mystical and hermetical, while Bonbon waited alongside the two with the patience of a saint. Dorothy Hoos looked at the astrolabes Baldessere had missing and was interested in the computational aspects of them. Her friend Carrot Top, however, looked bored as hell. Even Snips and Snails were taking a scholarly note of it all. Since had been surprised when Miss Shirley informed her that since he turned the corner of her attitude, she was having an effect on the 2 boys as well. But none of that was important to Sunset moment. At the notes, she was engrossed in the display of a computer screen showing high-resolution scans of Baldessere's notes. As she tried to piece together what Trixie and Lyra had taught her about traditional gematria and its Italian variant, she rifled through Google Translate on her phone, then filtered it through a gematria app she downloaded. As expected, some of it made sense. One numerical value translated to "I'm the eternal shadow," while most of it didn't. She had no idea what the "Crystal Heart sings proudly" meant, though it was likely random gibberish. Either way, she continued to take notes and hoped that some of it, any of it, would give her a clue how to proceed further in protecting Twilight. "Curious?" Applejack's voice rang behind her. Since it turned to face her friend, Applejack said in a soft tone, "Heard you what you did yesterday. I hate to say I'm impressed. Not just 'cause you're your sister. But next time, just be careful. I'd hate to see any of my friends hurt." "I'm already hurting AJ," Sunset said in a small voice, and has yet to stop. At the moment, she was feeling a sense of anxiety, so she needed to run out of the room as fast as she could and never come back. She wasn't sure what it portended, but whatever it meant, it was coming from the other side of the hall, where the mirror was. "Sonny, I thought you understood. You ain't alone in this," Applejack said, patting her friend on the shoulder. "We ain't letting you go alone in this one." "Really?" Sunset retorted. "Because do you understand any of this? Because I'm a unicorn, one of the best unicorn maids in sort of a Princess Twilight, and I have no idea what any of this means. It's all obscure references and extra comments from some weird guy who lived in the 14th Republic and might have gotten accent into obscure wisdom from a unicorn who may or not have gotten some nookie from the guy's wife. The same wife the guy's supposed to have killed." Sunset Applejack just looked at her friend, not knowing what to say. Finally, she voiced, "Doesn't mean we ain't here for you, Sonny." "I know," Sunset said quietly. "And I love you all for that. But I'm already in over my head. You guys will drown in whatever's going on." Uneasy silence sat between the two girls before Sunset said, "Well, time for me to see what I came here for. And that is the mirror. Something is wrong about it." And as the words left her mouth, she realized what the anxiety she was feeling was her natural instincts as a pony, normally suppressed by a human body, telling her to run, and that there was something powerful, evil, and dark in her room. As she went to the direction where most of the people were, by the mirror, even though it was safely behind bulletproof glass, she could see even from where she was, across the room by the information terminals. "I have to get closer," Sunset insisted. "No, you don't." Elzak cowered as one of their eyebrows rose in reproach. "And I know that voice, sonny. You're going to do something stupid, ain't you? AJ, you're one of my best friends, so what do you think?" "I'll go with you. Someone has to keep you out of trouble," Elzak said with a grin. Slowly, making their way through the groups of museum visitors, the pair made their way to the riser, overlooking the restricted area where the mirror sat behind bulletproof polycarbonate. With just a few steps, Sunset Zimmer found herself facing the mirror of Calavanti, the possible source of everything that was happening to her sister. At first glance, the whole display was nothing special. The mirror stood about 6 feet in height, and was for the most part a typical construct of its time, composed of wood, glass, and silver. But it was the details that made it stand out from typical mirrors of its type. Wood was covered in gold leaf and various symbols, many of which Sunset did not recognize, were carved into its face. The gems were carved into the shapes of cueing marks, and they were cueing marks, she was sure of it, much larger than expected. Typically here on Earth, the largest gems rival golf balls in the size on average, but the 5 present here, by the size of them, roughly the same diameter as softballs, they had to be from Equestria, where small gems tended to be the size of hooves. One of the gems, the ruby cueing mark, had been removed and was sitting on the burgundy pillar beside a glass case next to the mirror display. Right above a sign read, "The central gem, known as Il Rubugno dell'Ombre (Ruby of Shadows), fell out of its socket unexpectedly while its normal display location in the Castello di Cravanti on November 10, 2012. Of the other 2 gems, the Emerald of Night." I'm going to get my Italian a workout today, aren't I? "Lo Semello della Notte," and the Diamond of the Arts, "Il Diamante delle Arti," are close in their settings, but not falling out. The remaining 2 gems, the Amethyst of the Sun, La Ametista del Sole, and the Sapphire of the Moon, Lo Zaffiro della Luna, are still firmly attached. Finally, Sunset looked at the mirror itself. Where people saw the reflection, she saw her reflection, the mace-hued unicorn she used to be. She let out a slight gasp, completely shocked. "You okay?" Upstart whispered. "I see myself, as in, kind of fuzzy." Applejack knew in a heartbeat what that meant. "You're kidding." "No, I'm not. Take my hand, and I'll cast True Strike Charm on you. No offense, Milton Sugarcube, but if I had to do that, people are gonna think we're like I or a bonbon." "Good point," Sunset answered. "Okay, then this. I'll put my hand on the rail. Then you accidentally brush yours against mine, and I can cast it quick then." Not waiting for an answer, Sunset leaned in forward on its rail, placing her hands down for support. Applejack leaned in a second later, inadvertently placing a part of her hand on Sunset's. Applejack then felt a tingle in her hand, and as she looked in the mirror, she saw herself standing next to an adorable little unicorn, leaning up against the railing. A second later, the former farm girl broke contact with a false embarrassed mutter of, "Whoops, sorry." However, she continued to see herself and the unicorn Sunset in the mirror, spelled sully. "How long does this last?" she whispered. "About an hour or so," Sunset replied, "but you only see my true form in the reflections." However, her voice quavered as her mind roiled with the realization she now had proof. The mirror was a doorway to Equestria, just like the statue in front of the school. However, while that door remained closed for another 2.5 years, this one was wide open. Something from the other side was coming through to her twilight. Could this be the Star Celestia's attack for me? Was she finally coming through my head? Thought gripped Sunset's heart in a panic, in a way not even demonization had done. But the princess would never attack an answer just to get to me, would she? No, she's not like that. She only hates me, and I don't think she ever allowed an innocent, even one so tied to me, to get caught in the crossfire. Besides, Princess Twilight is her surrogate daughter. Napoleon could never be. She wouldn't raise a hoof against Twilight's counterpart. No, she decided, that had to be it. Celestia may hate her with every fiber of her being, but she could never hate Twilight, even an alternate universe version of her. So it couldn't be her, Sunset realized. But even that line of thought led to madness. What if something else is attacking her? There are plenty of other monsters in Equestria, if not on Equus, and any enough of them could be willing to try something. Sunset remembered that long ago, a monstrous centaur, whose name she could not recall, would have destroyed Celestia had it not been for the monster's brother changing sides and joining Celestia's army. Even though the monster was likely sentenced to Tartarus, could he escape to discover the path to Earth? But if so, why harm Twilight? Because she's the alternate version of Celestia's own daughter. Sunset realized, blood running cold. It doesn't matter that Twilight and Twilight are different. It's their similarities that such an enemy would throw in the princess's face. Plus, Hermione added, it might not be that enemy. It could be another Changeling army. After all, we don't know much about them, and even the similar myths on Earth are better documented than what we had in Equestria. The Minotaur King might have had his eye on conquest once more. Hell, I think I once read about a dark evil Alucard that challenged Celestia for supremacy of the skies. Could that have been the black unicorn Balthazar meant? Fearing Sunset lost her footing, collapsing in realization. She wasn't just a single unicorn like Sarswell the Buried, facing against the whole world's evils and monstrosities. She was an incompetently trained archmage candidate, and a fallen one at that, with nearly all of her power stripped away, facing a new doorway to the world she came from, a world she knew to have far worse evils than anything on Earth. A few weeks back, Rainbow, after watching the new Godzilla movie, asked Sunset if there was anything in Equestria that could take on the giant lizard. Sunset answered honestly that an Ursa Major could, and would likely win. Once the afternoon had been subdued after that. I have no power to save my sister, Sunset thought, her body going numb as she sat there on the floor, curling into herself. Something's attacking her, and I'll never know the reason why. Says that I can't stop it somehow. She's going to die. But I can't. No, can't let her die. I'll never forgive myself. She's my sister, foster, whatever. She's my family, and Miss Simmer? A gentle voice said. She felt gentle hands pull it up. Come with me, please. She turned to look at Principal Celestia, looking at her with concerned eyes. Sunset wasn't sure how long she was in the so-called easy room at the museum. The room was set up for those who had vertigo or anything that would require a museum visitor to rest until recovered or the paramedics arrived. Each of the 4 buildings made up of the ECMAH campus had one, and Sunset was in the main one, nestled within the building's administrative spaces. Good, you're up. As Sunset sat up, she saw Celestia standing there, ball of water in hand. Drink this. It should make you feel better. Sunset gratefully took it, and as she unscrewed the cap, she heard the principal say, Applejack was kind enough to explain you were feeling weak from lack of sleep as of late. But she couched it up in a manner that makes me think something else is the matter. Sunset wordlessly nodded, but asked, Where are my friends? They're waiting outside. The buses departed back to your school an hour ago, but they refused to leave. So since Luna and I offered to remain and watch over you 6, I contacted your parents. While Velvet's in a meeting over in Chico, I managed to get a hold of Mike's office, and he's ending his class early so he can come get you. Thanks. Can you call the girl? Sunny! A high-speed magenta blur slammed to the Sunset, knocking her off the fence. Sunset found herself looking up into the very worried eyes of Pinkie Pie. Are you not looking? Well, I was, Sunset winced, until you rocketed into me about 100 miles per hour, Pinks. Oh, sorry, but at least you're okay, Pinkie said, deliberately applying a bear hug to Sunset. Not if you're intent on putting me back in the hospital, Pinkie, Sunset grunted. Sorry. Okay, Planks, that's enough, Applejack replied, gently pulling the cheerleader off of Sunset. How you holding up, you? She asked. I've been better, considering I just found another open door to Equestria, Sunset explained. What? The whole room asked in unison. Sunset then explained everything she discovered in the past couple of months. For Celestia and Luna, they were both shocked that Sunset had been dealing with everything the whole time, and both promised to speak to Velvet and Knight about it. As for the others, they were a mix of emotions. They were already worried about Sunset running herself to the point of exhaustion, but glad she was willing to do so for someone she cared about. You know, Rainbow chimed in, since Twilight's dealing with all this crap, and you're burning yourself out for something that supposedly comes from your home planet, maybe we can send word to Princess Twilight for help. And Sunset glared at her. Rainbow shrugged and said, Hey, Sunny, you and Twilight are my friends, and I don't like seeing my friends get trashed by some Pluto that I can't deal with. So since I can't, all I can do is suggest someone who can. I also think that it would be worth the effort, Verity advised. To get word to Princess Twilight. I, for one, would be glad to see her again, and I dare say she has a vested interest in keeping this doorway closed to not be abused. I agree we should ask Princess Twilight to step in, Fluttershy added, in unison with Rainbow and Rarity. One by one, the others in the room decided the exact same thing. All that is, except for Sunset. I want to destroy that thing, Sunset said. It's the only option I could think of. Sunset, as proud as I am for thinking about it, I cannot condone this, Celestia stated, giving the former pony a stern glance. You do realize you're talking about a priceless foreign antique, right? No, I'm talking about a gateway from my home world that is killing my sister. You know, the daughter of your best friend, Sunset retorted. If I just sit here and do nothing, Twilight will die, whether by her own hand or from something using the gateway. And I won't let that happen! Tears from earlier came back with a vengeance, and a single rivulet cascaded down Sunset's cheek. I've used every spell at my disposal to stop it, and I can't! She let them all. Twilight just tried killing herself last week. She did it in order to escape whatever she was running from. It was a miracle I was able to save her, and it came for both of us. Next time, I might not be there. Next time might be too late. The room fell silent, save for Sunset sobbing. After a few more minutes, she recomposed herself and said, I have to stop that mirror, one way or another. This isn't about my past or whether I made up for it. It's about saving Twilight, and I'm willing to pay whatever price it takes to save her. Does that include killing everyone on this world? Luna asked. Sunset suddenly went as though she had been slapped. Now Cersei had the team's attention, the Vice Principal continued. It wasn't that long ago that when people first considered splitting the atom, they were afraid that the explosion would set off a chain reaction that would melt the world. And these were the finest minds that humanity had at the time. Now, you may be very scared of what you could do on your world, Sunset. I don't have that proof, and we largely have only your word to go by. But even still, can you confirm that simply breaking the mirror will cause no harm to anyone in this world? The world you yourself has chosen as your home? You may save Twilight from what's disturbing her, but you may doom us all in the process. My sister's right, Sunset. If what you're saying is true, the mirror was made centuries ago, by another of your kind. Unless you know exactly what to do to seal the damage, you might end up making things worse, Celestia added. Granted, I know nothing about magic, but I suspect it follows the same general rules as anything else in life, that there are many different ways of accomplishing the same result. Plus, Sunny, Rainbow piped up, you have told us that you're not as strong as you used to be, because your magic is weaker here. For that, she got a glare from Sunset, but the athlete stood her ground. Look, I know you love your sister and family, and I respect that. You know you're one of my best friends. You know I'm happy for you. But I love my family as well, and as much as I hate to say it, I have to think of them as well. But I know it'll work, Sunset insisted. No, you don't, Pinky replied. Do you remember when you were going to smash that school statue with a sledgehammer? Twilight told us that though she forgotten at the time, ultimately you wouldn't have succeeded. The magical shield was too strong. And what if it's the same in this case? What if you had to use more magic than you had to in order to break it? You could hurt yourself. Then there'd be nobody to help Twilight. I know a lot of magical theory has changed since the last time I was home on a regular basis, Sunset said, grasping at straws, and I know a lot of that had to do with Twilight's work. Besides, the mirror is ancient, The magic has to worn off. And yet you can feel it across the packed room, Applejack added. Not trying to scoot your son, Ethan, son. But my theory in the kid guess is that if the miracle do that, then there's no real chance it's a weak sauce either. But I have to stop it somehow. Do you come up with a way? Celestia said encouragingly. Despite all the trouble you've been in over the years, I've never been able to deny you're a very inventive girl with a lot of potential, Sunset. In the past year, you've gone a long way towards proving that. I don't doubt you'll find a way to solve this, Sunset Simmer. I believe in you. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Sunset heard those words from an individual of authority named Celestia. And while she knew the one who she knows wanted to kill her, just one at least wanted her to succeed. And succeed one way or another, she would. The drive back home was subdued. Celestia and Luna explained to Nightlight that Sunset had passed out from exhaustion and needed some rest. While that much was true, both women knew that the whole explanation was not going to be forthcoming. Both of them hated to lie to the man who was essentially now Sunset's father, and a dear friend before that. They had also had a more personal talk with Night about everything that was going on in their household. And while Night had convinced her that they were doing everything they could to help Twilight through her difficult time, Celestia assured Sunset they would continue to monitor the situation. While there was nothing they could do about it from her point of view, as Sunset's friend and Sunset's educator, she was determined to do whatever she could. As Sunset got out of the car, Night said tiredly, "Well, since your mother is on the way back home, I told her to stop at Golden Scimitars to pick up kebab for all of us, if that's okay with you." "That's great, thanks," she said, noticing he called his wife her mother, a sign of how much she now belonged with them. Moreover, she didn't bother to correct him, not wanting to. Technically, none of it was true, but technicalities, such they had long since learned, were just speed bumps in the overall reality of life. "I think I'll go lie down for a bit," she told him. Not because she was lying. She genuinely still felt a little punchy for the afternoon's events, but because she needed to get back to her studies of the situation. So now she realized her initial approach of shielding Twilight from damage wasn't going to work. Instead, her focus now lay in trying to destroy that thing, before it both destroyed Twilight and before it caused any further damage. "Sonny?" She paused, looking back at Night. He looked at her with a foreign look on her face. "I know this doesn't seem normal or right, but all families go through rough patches. My parents were heavily set against my brother going to the military. Belle's parents weren't happy about her turning down Princeton just to attend Caroline State because Tia decided to come here. My parents wanted me to be a medical doctor instead of a scientific one. Even when Shiny was your age, he and Twilight used to bicker. Not much differently than you two and Spike now. It's just the way things are." Sunset stood there, not knowing what to say. What could she say? She never knew her birth parents. And while she was at the Caroline Orphanage for the first 5 years of her life, she never recalled it being a hard-scrabble life there, as the caretakers worked on all hosts to make sure that the children were happy. Their successive years as Celestia student, everything had been perfect, though in the end she had no one to blame for having no friends or fellow students to work with. Even Twilight, who began her tutelage under Celestia when Sunset was 16, could have served as a surrogate little sister to Sunset. But now, a very different Twilight was serving that need. And that Twilight was a danger. There was no way to get a hold of the one that defeated her. Her only hope was severing the connection between Equus and Earth, for once and for all. It would leave her permanently stranded on Earth, but it was an option she was willing to live with. After all, I have nothing back there. Sunset stood on a blackened cliff, overlooking a blasted plain that was half glass. The area around her had looked as though it had been a result of a thermonuclear explosion. While she had never seen anything like that in real life, for the past few months she had watched enough movies to display the ravaging effects of humanity's most powerful weapon. It both shocked and horrified her that the species could come up with something that rivaled the worst black magic in destructiveness. But war was never something that made sense anyway. The sky looked unnatural as well. Mamma was this cloud of burnt umber, while searing stitches of green lightning racing across their lengths. The whole vista, when taken together, looked more something like a heavy music video than anything else. See, halfway he expected Evil Centaur's Inc. to performing I Ate It All, with T-Rex growling, bassy voice belting out lyrics, while slamming down on a throbbing, thundering guitar. It's sad, isn't it? A voice said. Sunset turned to see Twilight Sparkle, the alicorn, standing next to her in full regalia. Curiously, though, she wasn't wearing the tiara that held the element of magic, but instead a crown of a different kind. A spiky lattice that contrasted with Celestia's rounder, softer crown. The flame-haired girl figured that made sense. After what Sunset had done, it would make more sense to keep the element of magic under safer wraps. Besides, the spikier crown much more benefited Twilight's status as Equestria's warrior princess. What's that, Twilight? Sunset asked. Hearing the alicorn's voice, it was hard to separate her from Twilight. Normally she could, but at one moment in time, however, it seemed impossible. Maybe I shouldn't, she reasoned. The existence of Fane was still niece, but they were different people, she realized a second later. Being a princess of the United States wasn't exactly going to be Twilight's destiny. President someday? Maybe, who knew? But Sunset's foster sister wasn't set on a course for alicornhood anytime soon. But you did, Sunset, Twilight responded, lifting a hoof and sweeping through the air. While I was only here for a short time, I remember it being beautiful in its own way, she said mournfully. What are you talking about, Sparkle? Sunset asked, as she turned to face Twilight. But as she moved her foot, it clanged against something metal. Sunset looked down, and her heart suddenly stopped. The metal was twisted and blackened, but the field green paint of the background was still somewhat present, as was the white reflective tape that read, Carolot, city limits, population 468,200, elevation 495 feet. What? Sunset looked at the sign that the cliffside she was on in the valley below. But it wasn't a cliff in the valley. She stood on the lip of a massive blast crater, with the blackened rocks in the center now revealed as the last remnants of the tallest building of what had been America's 37th largest city. How? She asked, not comprehending. You destroyed the mirror, Twilight Sparkle said. You tried to save the sister you loved so much. And yet in doing so, you doomed two worlds. Two worlds? The alicorn nodded. Didn't you ever wonder what the mirror was connected to? Not all portals are the same way, you know. Twilight fixed her eyes on the horizon and said, I once found a portal that was connected to a bottomless pit on the other side. Only flying creatures could make the 4-mile journey upwards to escape it. But in the case of the mirror, you thought it was connected to the black unicorn, didn't you? It wasn't. What was Steeplechase Mountain? When Twilight uttered the words, Sunset's eyes opened wide in horror. Steeplechase Mountain was the largest mountain on Equus, far larger than Ursa's Mountain, Everest, K2, or Mauna Kea, depending on who you asked. And if anything was closer in size to Olympus Mons, on Earth's neighboring world of Mars, but Steeplechase Mountain was of dormant No! Twilight nodded as he saw the realization body slammer into Sunset's features. The mirror awoke Steeplechase, made it erupt in the worst way. Equestria, Minos, so many nations, all gone now. I survived by escaping through Platinum's mirror, but now I'm trapped here on Earth. Forever. All my friends, all my family, Celestia, gone. And without her or me, Equus' sun will spin out of control, and everything on the planet will die. And as for here, Earth escaped the backlash, but not by much. You're standing on the southernmost part of the crater, which stretches as far west as Horseshoe Bay, north to just past Brambleton, and over to Oregon's state line, all the way east, just short of Ponyville. The authorities estimate that about 2 million people, all in all, died. Died? Died. Because you wanted to save your sister. That's 2 million humans, by the way. Twilight spoke, anger climbing to her voice. Meanwhile, back on Equus, The world you came from? The 2 billion inhabitants are dead, or will be soon. Sunset looked at Twilight, looked at her, anger in her eyes. You killed millions! Who gave you the right? You killed both your kinds, pony and human, just to save one life, one single life! You committed genocide. Was it worth it? Sunset stood there, looking at the element magic, now the former ruler of a soon-to-be dead world he couldn't return to. Sunset couldn't find the words to say. Sorry simply wasn't going to be enough. It would never be enough. I never wanted this, she finally said, pointing to destruction. I wanted to save Twilight. Wouldn't you have wanted to save your family if you were in my shoes? But you couldn't even pull that off, Twilight said, pointing to a grave solitary hill, withered, reeking grass, the only thing in this brightened land, surrounded in a withered, grown gravestone, a gravestone that read, Here lies Twilight Sparkle, beloved daughter, sister, and friend. You couldn't even save her! Twilight screamed. The person you loved the most, and you killed her because you knew nothing about complex magic! Sunset dropped to her knees beside Twilight's grave. Her hands shook. I can't have done this. I was trying to save her. You can't save anything if all you do is destroy! Twilight roared at her. Sunset sat up, gasping for air. It was just a dream, she told herself. It was just a dream. But even then, she knew she'd gone full circle. When she had first arrived, she had been the one to have her nightmares on a regular basis. And now it was Twilight doing so. Finally Sunset herself once again. None of this made sense anymore. Are you okay? Sunset suddenly felt Twilight's arms around her, holding her close. No, just a nightmare. Soft giggle. That's my job, Twilight replied. Besides, aren't you supposed to be the strong one? The strong one? Sunset asked. But I'm not. I can't do anything to help you. Sunset thought ruefully. If I could, I would protect you from all this. I'm not strong, she finally voiced. Yes, you are, Twilight responded. When Sunset looked at her with surprise, Twilight just seemed to look out the window at the fading moonlight, as he said, Whenever I need you, you're always there. She then pointed to Sunset and said, The one who's not strong is me. I'm always leaning on you or Tavi for support. If anything, Fluttershy's got a stronger spine than I do. But Twilight put a gentle finger on Sunset's lips. A tender touch could easily be misunderstood if anyone else was present. You think you're lucky because you have us. It's wrong. I'm the lucky one, 'cause I have you. I would have died that day. I still want to, sort of. But you won't let me. You protect me, even when I don't deserve it. You deserve it, sis, Sunset replied, her heart welling. You deserve to be happy. As long as we're together, Sunny, Twilight said, I'll always be happy. As long as we're together, I'll always be happy, rang in Sunset's ears as the two sisters embraced. As they both lay down once again to get some sleep once more, Sunset lay in bed, eyes open. I finally have something in my life that's worthwhile, Sunset said, looking at the still form next to her. I finally have a life worth living, and I can't lose it, no matter what. I can't destroy the mirror safely then. She gulped. Only one choice. The unthinkable remained. School's out now, Sunset rued to herself. School year's over. Piggy's planning the party of the year tomorrow, and I'm here at the museum, staring at my bane and my sister's potential killer. Indeed, the museum was very empty, leaving Sunset virtually alone to confound the exposition, with the girl staring into the mirror, the unicorns who used to be looking back at her. She looked away from the mirror, towards her hand as she flexed it. One single outburst of energy. It would drain me, since the moon is just coming off its new phase, but it would be enough to destroy the mirror. She sighed. But if I did... A phrase suddenly came to mind, and before Sunset realized it, she voiced it. It's from a documentary they watched in history class a few days ago. We knew the world would not be the same. A few people laughed, a few cried. Most were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture. The Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty. To impress him, takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I become death, destroyer of worlds." There was an unexpected clapping sound behind her as a woman said in a sultry, accented tone, "I am quite impressed. I would have expected that from that daughter." Sunset turned around to see a woman standing there. She was clearly middle-aged, but no less beautiful for it. She looked like a slightly aged version of Cadence, but with Celestia's hairstyle and a nebulous, flowing, sparkling look to her, not unlike Luna. "Do I know you?" "No, but I am aware of who you are. My daughter talks about you often." As Sunset hadn't offered any divulgence of her identity, the woman grinned slightly and said, "I know who I am. You can't disbelieve it, can you?" She chuckled, gracefully covering her laughter behind her hand. "Yes, I'm quite aware that I look younger than I am. Cadenza gets her beauty from my side of the family instead of my husband's, though I must admit he's quite easy on the eyes." She stepped forward, offering a hand. "Well, let's dispense with the informalities. My name is Ammonia. You're the older adopted daughter of my sister's best friend, Twilight Velvet. So it's similar, am I right?" "Well, more like foster, not actually adopted," Sunset admitted, shaking her head. "But they apparently love me enough to think that anyway." "They do. I can assure you, else I wouldn't know about you. I am not as close to Vera as my sisters are, but Tia and Lulu have talked about you throughout the years, and I'm glad to hear you turn yourself around, young miss. Very much so, considering that you are here in the museum with your fellow teenagers are far more interested in running out there amongst the streets and late spring entertainments than a post-school time frame has to offer." "Okay, I can see why Principal Celestia said she and Luna are nothing like their sister. She wasn't kidding. For that matter, she isn't much like Faust, either." "Wonder what I thought she would be," Sunset considered. "Well, I like the museum." "But you don't deny this exhibition," Ammonia replied. "No, no need to deny it. I can see that in your eyes. You work at a museum long enough, you get to have a feel for people and how they think. And I see something in you that this exhibit brings a primal feeling out. I can't say I blame you. I don't care for this place either." That wasn't something Sunset expected to hear. "Why not?" "Well, when it comes to traveling exhibitions, museums are just like any other business, in a sense. We have a finite amount of money, which we use to catch the public's attention. While many of us would like to call in the classics, there's a touring epical exhibit and crowd sale that we could have. Sometimes we must use what at our disposal. In this case, the whole of directors of a road succession are la Balacour and decided on this mockery." "Mockery?" "Of course. What else would it be? I know you're aware that my family is from the same town that this idiot was from. There's even a possibility he may be a distant ancestor. But if so, he was a stain on his lineage. A man who believed that he could take shortcuts towards achieving his goals, regardless of whether or not anyone close to him suffered the consequences." Amalia moved right to Sunset, looking at the mirror. "Did you know that most historians believe he murdered his young wife, either because of an affair she was having, or because she could not bear an heir? However, one very ancient legend says that he gave her to the Black Unicorn as a gift in trade for more power, and that Balasar watched as his wife and the Black Unicorn consummated before living through the mirror." "Who would do anything like that?" Sunset wasn't sure what to be more disgusted by. The interspecies relationship, which was definitely impossible insofar as human morals currently stood. Balasar agreeing to the wife swap, or that he watched. "Read up on the ballet of Chestnut sometime, young lady," Hermione suggested. "Nobility at the time thought they could get away with anything. Given how the law was structured back then, they very well could." "In any case, it was also rumored that the Black Unicorn gave Balestier one of the earth, whatever that means, to take of the bride. What we do know is that Balestier's second wife, Briere, despite her name, was not of French birth, and that her birth name might have been Sulo di Caravino. That now is important, as my family has deconfigured ancestry. I see, Sunset lied, focused more on the hated object before her. In any case, it is all a sham. Then he was a charlatan and a fraud, possibly a murderer and an utter fiend. If any of it is true, which is impossible, then he was much worse than he could ever imagine. And that thing, she said, pointing to the mirror, is a dangerous abomination that should not exist on this world. Sunset was about to say reply, but Harmonia sighed and added, of course, none of it is true. The very existence of unicorns is preposterous, is it not? Not sure if I can answer that, Sunset replied with a soft, nervous smile. I could give an answer, but I'd be lying either way. Harmonia chuckled, a grin breaking onto her face. Small wonder Myanmar thinks so highly of you. But regardless of how as a welterweight conversation, how much have you learned? Learn? Learning is a lifelong process, young lady. Just because you're done with your school year, or even finished your scholarly supports with the next decade, doesn't mean that the lingering has stopped. It only ends when you are dead. Well, learn this thing, Sully said, referring to a mirror. It's something I intensely dislike, and that it bothers me. And anything else? That you're correcting my students again, aren't you? Celestia's voice sounded as he approached her pair. Amalia smiled. Of course, Carabella. She's your pupil and Velvet's daughter, is she not? She said with a saucy wink. Celestia face-palmed. And to think, I'm here to go over any last detail before your trip to Italy tomorrow. Ugh, she groaned. Then, of course. Then, I still have a museum to run, Amalia said. So I'll leave you two here to sort out the Beatrice. See you later. With that, the older woman sauntered down the steps, walking through the nearly empty hall, leaving educator and pupil alone on the overhang. I know why you're here, Celestia told Sunset flatly, and I cannot let you do it. It's too dangerous. I don't know about the first thing about magic, yet I have a feeling you're messing with things you shouldn't be trifling with, Miss Simmer. I know you want to. Don't, Sunset said in a firm tone. Just don't. Nothing you do or say is going to change my mind. She turned away from Celestia and leaned on the railing sadly. I have to do this. I will not let you destroy the mirror, Sunset. There are too many unknown variables, the least of which being it's a priceless antique. Fine, Sunset said, staring Principal in the eyes, because I came to insist in that you're right. I can't destroy the mirror, not in time to save Twilight. That's relief, Celestia started, because for a moment, I thought you were going to do something ill-advised. I'm going back to a question. You have to fight whatever it is that's hurting Twilight. I'm going back through the mirror. Are you out of your freaking goddamn mind? Rainbow railed at her friend. What the fuck kind of crack are you on? Rainbow-haired athlete got right in her friend's face. You are not going anywhere. That's final. Rainbow seethed. Looking at her burgundy-colored eyes would have been confused for rage if someone didn't know her. But Sunset knew better. It wasn't fury that was held fast in the eyes of Rainbow Dash, but worry. She looked down the hall. The majority of them just stepped through the door at the empty school. The moment Sunset informed Celestia of their decision, the older woman did something completely unexpected. Almost exploded to anger with worry. It ordered Sunset into her car, where the pair then drove at 10 cents back to Quantala High, where Sunset was parked for her safety in the faculty conference room, while Celestia immediately called Luna, then each of the girls. 30 minutes later, the arrivals came, and they were not happy. I have to go back. It's the only way to save Twilight, Sunset insisted as she spoke to them all. She could see the confusion in the eyes of the adults, the worry and anger at those of her friends. I'm out of ideas. It's the last thing I could think of. She looked at her dearest friends, almost like sisters themselves, just as dear to her as her family. Part of who she become was now due to him, and for that she owed her friends a debt she could never repay. Sonny, Applejack said, voice genuinely quavering. I don't think this is a good idea.
Sunny, don't go.
While Rainbow was agitated and Applejack concerned, Thursday was downright horrified.
Please.
It's not permanent, girls, Sunset said, in confidence he didn't really feel. This is my home now. I may have been born a unicorn, but now, well, I like who I am now. I wouldn't give that up for the world. Pinky, however, reacted with her usual aplomb.
But she'll kill you! You said so!
She'll what? Lena and Celestia gasped. More Sunset could lie, Rarity interjected. Sunset isn't quite who she says she is. A parental figure, as it was, is Princess Twilight's mentor, and Sunset was actually Princess Twilight's predecessor, and said parental figure is also Queen of the Realm, if I understood the earlier explanation correctly. Luna looked at Sunset with disbelief. You're a princess? Sunset sighed and glared at Rarity, who returned her reaction. Yadala, she said, No, I'm not a princess, just raised by one. The Grand Princess Regent of the Dominion of Equestria. You must know I'm a baroness. Or well, I was going to be, but that's all in the past now. I sense there's a story, Luna replied. Yes, there is. Sunset's tone indicates she wasn't in a mood for retelling. In response, Celestia crossed her arms. We have time. 20 minutes and yet another brief retelling of her life. Sunset finished it with, That's the whole thing. Now you know who I really am. Well, was, as far as I'm concerned. Sunset Simmer the Unicorn no longer exists. I'm just me, with a family of friends, very reluctant me to go back to my past. I'll be honest, Sunset, Celestia spoke. I'm of two minds about this. Velvet is my best friend, and you are her daughter. In heart, if not legally. To see you risk your life against this princess who threatens you is something I don't care for. Are you all sure that Princess Twilight will not help you? Luna asked. Twilight won't go against her mentor, Sunset said firmly, noting that for the first time, Celestia called her by her first name. Well, the principal typically did that with most of her students. She never did that with her problem children. And here the change. His final indicator now Celestia truly saw her as a troublemaking alien student. Destined second, and Twilight Velvet daughters first. She might try to help her change her mind, but in the end she won't stand against the princess. Sunset explained.
Then we'll go with you,
Pinky declared, and as one, the other friends nodded in agreement. Even Fluttershy would be the last to agree to anything risky stood with them. You can't, she told her friends. You have families that rely on you in almost some way or another. I might not make it back, which would break my family's heart. Fluttershy, who would watch Angel if you vanished. Pinky, your aunt and uncle need you to help with the twins. Rainbow, Skillo looks up to her big sister. I couldn't take that away from her. Applejack and Rarity, your families need you too. And Twilight and Tabby both look up to you, Rarity cowered. You can't abandon them, Sonny. No, but I don't want to attend Twilight's funeral by the end of the month. Because if we reach that point, who knows what the fuck's going to happen? Do any of you understand? I'm a wild fugitive by the crown of Equestria. I'm only safe while I remain here on Earth. But to me, my family, my sister, is more important than my own life. Sunset slammed a fist against the particle board, the conference table. While it didn't break, she left a decent indentation. I risked my life for any of you! But I can't bear to live with survivor's guilt. I put up with 2 months already, and I can't afford to lose anything I love anymore. There has to be— No! No, there's not! Sunset screamed. There's not, she had, modulating in volume. Either I do this, or my sister dies. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I feel as my life is no longer mine, and I'm just being dragged along a predestined course, and I'm thinking it all through. I just know I'm out of options. And Twilight's out of time, and I'm tired of justifying things and making excuses. She flopped back in her chair. Either you help me, or I break in, she swore. I will take on everyone in my way that will prevent me from saving my sister. They gave me a life, and I'll give mine to save Twilight's. That's all I'm going to say from this point. That's your decision, Luna asked. Innocent was the only one left. Then let us think about this, Celestia said, feeling the tension in the air. While I have no experience in any of this, or actually would, I like the idea of sending you to what may be a one-way ticket to death. With that, she walked towards the door. Step out a second with you, Miss Shimmer? Sunset wasn't sure how long she was out there, but it was Rarity who came out to get her. Principal Celestia says she'll come up with some way to getting us private access to the museum. It might be during the upcoming 17th Super Session, though. The what? You know, for a person who spent a lot of time at the museum last night, I'm surprised you missed that. It's the annual team party at the museum throws in order to get people our age more comfortable with museums and culture. Oh, well, Sunset said, blushing. I didn't care about that much in the past. I quite understand. In any case, Rarity began. What Rares is trying to say is, we don't want you to go, Sonny. You're our friend. The girls now stood there as well, behind them, just departing the conference room, with Celestia and Luna. Sure this is the only way? If there was a way to signal Princess Twilight for help, I would. Sunset said, but I can't. My only option is to save Twilight or go back, or die trying. Well, don't you dare get yourself killed, Sonny, Rainbow threatened, or I swear I'm going to kick your ass from here to Znada. Yes, because threats are so going to be constructive to someone reluctantly returning to the land of their birth. Under a death sentence, Rainbow, Rarity drawled, rolling her eyes. Sunny dear, you're awfully quiet this morning. It was the following day, Saturday, May 31st. At the end of the day, Sunset would be seeing her family off at CJV and head for Octavius for a week. She still had to pack for that trip, assuming because she couldn't figure out what to take, but she knew where she'd be going. The bag would be cumbersome, mostly because she never could fit into the clothing on her another form. Other form, she mused grimly. There was a time when it was my only form, or I referred to it as my real form. Is this who I am now? Am I more human than unicorn? Even though I'm about to return to Equestria, I'm planning to come back. Does this mean I've turned my back on who I was? Well, I said yesterday that Sunset Simmer was the only one I'm about to become again, true? Ow! She rubbed the sharp sting on her shoulder, knowing seeing Spike look at her. You know, Squirt, she said angrily, if you weren't going on vacation, I'd force feed you that spoon right now. Well, it's your fault for spacing out, Frosted Brother said. Well, I've been trying to get your attention for the past few seconds. Sunset did blink, then looked at Velvet. Sorry. These thoughts for a shallow mind, she said with genuine brightness. So what day? Twilight said earlier, before anyone else could comment. What is that? It means she misses us, Velvet said sadly. We're not even gone yet, and you miss us. Velvet looked at her foster daughter, loving smile on her face. What's just natural, I guess. When you're apart from the people you love, you start to miss them even when they kind of quite departed, because you're not eager to see them vanish. Am I that transparent? Sunset replied, astonished. A year ago, she prided herself on being cryptic. Even Flash, arguably the person she was closest to at the time, and often only separated from her by the occasional thin layer of latex, knew almost nothing about her other than the lies she wove. But in just over 7 months, her world changed so radically, she wouldn't believe it was Francine lived it. She couldn't deny now she lost everything. She gained everything. Sunset wiped a tear from her eye. I. She couldn't deny say it. Why the hell couldn't she say it? She might never see Twilight again. She might never see her family again. And a day from now, she was crossing the dimensional veil, back to Equestria. First thing she might see was the erased eyes of Princess Celestia. A nanosecond before the Alicorn of all incinerated Sunset for her countless sins. Yes, she couldn't voice the words she wanted to say now. I miss you all. I love you all. It's okay, Twilight said, rising from her chair to embrace Sunset. Though Twilight looked like she was barely awake, probably the last person she needed to get from her chair, she did so, because she knew someone needed a hug. We know, sis. We know. Neither Sunset nor Twilight knew how long they were in that motion. They was holding each other, until Spike said, Hey, I'm going to eat your sausages if you don't start getting Care Bear on me! Spike! Both girls said, more amused than irritated. As the three girls started to bicker at the breakfast table, Velvet looked at Night and said, Did you? I'll let evening explain, was Night's answer.